Okay. Turning
Do you want me to try coming on through the link in the email?
No, I tried beforehand and it has a horse's head going down a hole. So we'll that's the MailChimp. I can't follow this link. So we'll figure it out for next week. Okay, let's see. There's the sutta. All right, so the sutta for today. Let's start with a Namo Tassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang Dhammang Sangham Namassami. So, yes, there's much rejoicing that the Buddha's offered these teachings to us, and today's, I think, is a really great one because we get to get into the mind of the Buddha based on his explanation of how he practiced contemplation, meditation, and then awakening. So the sutta is, oops, I should pin myself. Let's see how to do that. Ayya Suvijana is in seclusion this week, so I'm flying solo. And we can share merits and rejoice that there's meditation going on down the hall. This sutta is the Tapussa Sutta, and it's from the Anguttara Nikaya 941. And this is basically the Buddha acknowledging that, it wasn't that his heart just jumped up and delighted in renunciation from the get-go, and that he really did do some contemplative practices to align his heart so that jhanas were really a thing that was nourishing for him. And he kind of explains that in this sutta, what the process of establishing a right view and that leads to right thought. So I will share the screen. It is not the Sutta Central one. I clipped, let me see, it was Bhante Thanissaro Bhikkhu's translation mostly into a Google Doc so that it's got my notes as well. So let's share that. Let's see. Aha, here we are. Let's share this one. All right. So are you seeing? Yes. Okay. So move the faces to the side. Oops. There we go. Nope. Just keeps wanting to put them over the words. I'll move. There we go. Excellent. So the introduction is that the Buddha's just come back from alms round and he's staying with Ananda, and he asks Ananda to stay out where the people might see him, and the Buddha goes off into the woods to meditate. After a while, a householder named Tapussa comes along and suggests to Ananda that renunciation is the dividing line between lay and the monastic community. And although I think that can be true, I don't want to leave out plenty of lay people who are practicing renunciation, and sadly some of the monastics who are not. So, please place yourself where it feels appropriate, straddling that dividing line. And in the sutta, the Buddha is not, one thing that Ajahn Brahmali likes to make sure is clear is he's not denigrating sense pleasures as a thing that's pleasurable and appropriate to do. He's saying that renunciation has a different trajectory and leads to a different result. So this is not saying not to enjoy your meal or your relationships or those kind of things. John, do you have a question? Please go ahead.
Okay, thanks, Aya. Um, what about somebody who renounced certain things in their life? Like they renounced a lot of anger or they renounced certain kinds of habits? Like, are we talking about renouncing the whole world here, or can it be like a piecemeal thing?
I
Thank you.
think this is a really ideal question for this sutta. This is a piecemeal thing that leads to the ultimate renunciation. So the sutta is very, and that's what we're going to get into, is that the thought process the Buddha went through to say, hey, well, what about this? Well, hey, what about this? And, he's already like experienced the jhanas, and he's already experienced uh, different forms of renunciation. He's generally living most of the time, I'm imagining, without the hindrances, just chomping at his heels. So, he's coming at it a little bit further down the renunciation spectrum, but I think the advice he gives, and we'll see that this householder's, like where the householder places himself, the advice he's giving is for that householder who's like, hey, sense pleasure is my thing, all the way up to enlightenment. So great lead in, thank you. Okay, so I've pasted the sutta in, but I'm not going to read all of the bits so that we get through it. Some of it I will summarize, or I will just show the patterns. So we're going to skip to where this householder is arriving, pays respects to Ananda, and then he says this. Venerable Ananda, sir, we are householders who indulge in sensuality. We delight in sensuality, enjoy sensuality, rejoice in sensuality. For us, indulging in sensuality, delighting in sensuality, enjoying sensuality, rejoicing in sensuality, you see his theme. Renunciation seems like a sheer drop off, which I have definitely heard this from so many people. It's like, whoa, I'm going to give up the movies and wine tasting and theater tickets and, beautiful sunsets. I mean, it can get to extreme what people think renunciation is. It seems like a sheer drop off. Yet, I've heard that in this doctrine and discipline, the hearts of the very young monks leap up at renunciation. They grow confident, steadfast, and firm, seeing it as peace. So he's curious, what's up with this? So right here is where the doctrine and discipline is contrary to the great mass of people, i.e., this issue of renunciation. And as John was pointing out, the great mass of people really aren't even renouncing things like anger. They haven't seen why that would be a beneficial thing. Luckily, the formula we'll see will apply to just that, as well as all the other things that we might let go of. So what I've done is I've kind of created some tables along the way to kind of illustrate the sutta. And so this is what this layperson is observing, is that lay people enjoy sensual pleasures. And in Pali, that's kama rama. And kama's basically the world of pleasant desires, seeking after pleasures that are going to impact this sixth sense space, but definitely the five senses in particular. And then Rama is kind of a delighting or a pleasuring in, amusing oneself with. And then on the other side, he sees those in the Buddha's training where they become decided in renunciation. I'm using Bhante Sujato's translation in these little graphs. So the minds leap forth, gain confidence, settle down, and become decided in renunciation. They see it as peaceful. And renunciation in Pali is nekama, which is something you'll see in right intention in the Eightfold Path. And the definition here is that giving up the worldly pleasures, emancipation from the worldliness, freedom from lust, craving, and desires. So it really is going all the way toward nibbana. But the term renunciation can also be a simpler thing, and the Buddha goes into that. And the householder is saying, well, I see renunciation is the dividing line between the multitude and the mendicants in this teaching and training. Okay, so he said this to Ananda, not to the Buddha at this point. And Ananda says, well, this calls for a talk, householder. He's like, let's go get the authority. Let's go see the Blessed One. Let's approach him and on arrival, tell him this matter. However he explains it to us, we will bear it in mind. So they do that. They go to the Buddha. And this is the Buddha's response. And he's speaking to Ananda because Ananda just said, he's come, he told me this, and now what do you think? So the Buddha replies, so it is, Ananda, so it is. Even I myself, before my awakening, when I was still an unawakened bodhisattva, thought, renunciation is good, seclusion is good, but my heart didn't leap up at renunciation, didn't grow confident, steadfast, or firm, seeing it as peace. So he had this hypothesis that renunciation was good and seclusion was good, and thought that, with that thought, they should be able to like leap up and go meditate and, release it all, which is often how we approach our Buddhist practice, I think. Oh, the Buddha said that in a sutta, now let me sit down, and why is my mind assailing me, and why do I want to go look at Netflix or something? So here is kind of the pattern. Before the awakening, intent on awakening, the thought came, renunciation's good, seclusion is good. And this is a beautiful little phrase, sadhu nekamang sadhu paviveko. And we saw the nekama just above, that's the renunciation. Paviveka is the retirement, seclusion, solitude. So this would be going for meditation typically. And sadhu, we use that word frequently, and here it's really talking about it's good, it's profitable, it's merit, it's appropriate and leads to good things. It can also just mean well said. We say, sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. But it's also what's been said is leading to good things. So his hypothesis was that his mind would leap forth, gain confidence, settle down, become decided in renunciation, and he would see it as peaceful. But that isn't what happened. So he reports, I then thought, what is the cause? What is the reason why my heart doesn't leap up? And then he thought, I haven't seen the drawbacks of sensual pleasure. I haven't pursued that theme. I haven't understood the reward of renunciation. I haven't familiarized myself with it. That's why my heart doesn't leap up at renunciation, doesn't grow confident, steadfast, or firm, seeing it as peace. Then the thought occurred, and we'll have a graph again of how this flows. Then the thought occurred, if having seen the drawback of sensual pleasures, I were to pursue that theme, and if having understood the reward of renunciation, I were to familiarize myself with it, there's the possibility that my heart would leap up at renunciation, grow confident, steadfast, firm, seeing it as peace. So he's got the same goal, but he's realizing I need to take a little detour here and do some contemplation. So this is the kind of the process I see happening here. He asks the question, what is the cause? And we can apply this to anger, we can apply this to our eating habits, we can apply this to the way we're relating to a person, we can apply this to our meditation practice. This is a universal good question. what is the cause of this affect, sensation, body tone, mind state that I have right now? And noticing I haven't really seen the drawbacks of whatever it is that's pulling me off kilter. And I haven't realized the benefits of letting go. I'm going to use letting go. So the renunciation of that afflictive patterning. And so what I've been working with in my practice, and I suggest that this experiment is a great big part of our practice that leads to meditation. And we're using here the example of sense pleasures, which is at the root of basically our worldly existence. Cultivate seeing the drawbacks. And then we have the thought that renunciation is helpful, so then develop realizing the benefits of that. So give time to trying it out. Try out renunciation. See if I can realize some benefits. Also spend some time looking at what are the results of sense pleasure? What are the drawbacks of that? And I'm sure we all have stories of where sense pleasures have bit us hard and we go, oh yeah, that hurts. And the hypothesis was that the mind would then leap forth and the Buddha or whoever we are practicing, we would see that the renunciation is more peaceful than the indulging. Okay, so the Buddha did this. Time passed, the Buddha did this, and he said, so at a later time, so that's giving us a time shift. He's done the exploration, he's done some contemplation. He says in one sutta, basically all the sense pleasures that are out there, I've tried them all. Over my many, many lifetimes, I've really got the hang of sense pleasures, and I see the drawbacks. So the Buddha's got a lot under his belt, as do we, but we've got some more work to do, at least I do. So at a later time, having seen the drawback of sensual pleasures, I pursued that theme. Having understood the reward of renunciation, I familiarized myself with it. My heart leaped up at renunciation, grew confident, steadfast and firm, seeing it as peace. So this is now an experiential thing. Now, given at the time of this discourse, even as the Buddha is relaying back to this experience, he's already had some jhana experience, as he'd had that as a young child. So he did have the capacity to kind of remember back to how it was with, renunciation from the hindrances. And so he could familiarize it with himself, with himself. And he'd also done other practices where he practiced the different forms of meditation and renunciation. So it was kind of an easy comparison for the Buddha to probably make. We need to spend enough time to cultivate that understanding for ourselves. So the result was then quite withdrawn from sensuality, withdrawn from unskillful qualities, I entered and remained in the first jhana, rapture and pleasure born from withdrawal, accompanied by directed thought and evaluation. So at this point, the Buddha's entering the jhanas. And then in the next sentence, he talks about, okay, so kind of in this time period when I've been working with the first jhana, I then also came out and I realized that comparing that with the perceptions that are around sensuality, the perceptions of sensuality are afflictive. They're oppressive to me in comparison with practicing in the first jhana. So if we only have an hour of session here, so I'm not going to go into the poly of that last little section bit. You can look up Ajahn Brahmali in particular, but there are others as well, some very good teachers out there that really pull this section apart. And there's some discrepancy as to like, how deep in meditation are you when these occur, or does it occur? And, so that thread of when are these insights happening is not entirely clear by the Pali, because sometimes you can't tell ordering. John, do you have a question?
So, okay, if I make an observation.
Sure.
Okay, so it seems to me like this is saying he entered the first jhana based on his renunciation of sensual pleasure. And to me, that implies that renouncing sensual pleasure removes the obstacle of the hindrances, because the hindrances are the obstacles to attaining jhana. So that means the hindrances are rooted in sensual pleasure. And to me, that also means, I'll just say it briefly, that um, our relationship with sensual pleasure has to do with our struggle with, well, in my case, my struggle with difficult experience in the past, because there's avyapada that's coming up related to that past. And so to me, it's like the sensual pleasure is like the root of that problem. So that was my observation. Thanks.
Yes, and that's nicely put, that really by seeing the sensuality and setting it aside, letting that go, that is the putting the hindrances in abeyance, which is you have to do, or jhana is not going to happen, or it's not, at least not going to be sustained. Now, if the hindrances keep popping back up, those are based out of the sensual world. They're rooted in the sensual world. So it is necessary to have renounced, set aside, put into abeyance the hindrances, those characteristics of sensuality, in order to enter and remain in the first jhana. Okay, so thank you. Here's our summary. The Buddha had a hypothesis. If I see the drawbacks and the rewards, so the drawbacks of what's holding me back and the rewards of letting that go, then my mind will turn towards the renunciation and there will be peace. And then the Buddha put in the effort of seeing the drawbacks and the rewards. And we have so many suttas on this. I'm hoping at some point we'll do a series on this, the ways that the Buddha saw the drawbacks and the rewards. And the results were as he suspected. And then setting aside the sensual pleasure, he entered the first jhana, and there was some relief. There was this sense of relief from the sense world. And then emerging from the first jhana, he could clearly, this is a recommendation, is after you've been in a meditation to then look and see, what is that state versus this state, or the other states that I've been in. So he tasted the relief and he saw how it differed from the afflictions of sensuality. And this is part of where you can have your insight practice integrated with your samadhi practice. So next we'll kind of look at the pattern that emerges in the sutta. And I'm more focused on the pattern than I am in talking about the jhanas themselves. Because as John, as you pointed out earlier, this is applicable to all of these things that eat away at our practice, that afflict. I mean, when I'm in one of these states of longing or anger or just kind of wanting to turn away from it, in not a more a la, I just want to distract myself way. If I go and I look at what's going in my body and mind, it's afflictive. So that's what we can apply this to. And certainly when you are in the jhana practice, do these exact things. But I don't want to say this sutta is only applicable to the jhana practice. The Buddha is really talking about a pattern here. So here, back to the sutta. So number 2 in this thread is, the thought occurred to me, again, what if? what if the stilling of directed thoughts and evaluations, which is a characteristic of the first jhana, what if, with the stilling of directed thoughts and evaluations, I were to enter and remain in the second jhana? And he goes to say, what are the characteristics of the second jhana? I would be free from directed thought and evaluation. So he's got this what if question, and then he says, but my heart didn't leap up at being without the directed thought. And then he thought the next thing was, well, what is the cause of that? What's the reason? So then the next thought was, what? I think I haven't seen the drawbacks of directed thought. I haven't pursued that theme, and I haven't understood the reward of being without it, of letting it go, of renunciation. I haven't familiarized myself with it. So that's maybe why my mind, my heart doesn't leap up. Here it says heart. Ajahn Sujato uses mind. The word behind it, of course, is chitta. Okay, then the thought occurred to me, if I do see the drawbacks after I've seen them, and I pursue that theme, and I understand the reward, and I familiarize myself with that, then there's the possibility my heart would leap up at being without directed thought, grow confident, steadfast, and firm, seeing it as peace. Okay, so then I put some clocks in here, tick, 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 time goes by. So this is the process of spending the time to look at the drawbacks and also to spend the, so this is not neglecting meditation. I do feel like we need to do our meditation each day so that we're moving in to taste and touch that aspect of renunciation. And if it's not so deep, well, we also then have the time in our day where we're doing this contemplative practice and noticing with our mindfulness, there's a drawback of this. There's a drawback of that. Now, in this case, this is happening somewhat in that space of on the cushion, in the first jhana, coming out, evaluating. So there's a back and forth happening here of the contemplation and the deep samadhi. All right. So time has passed. So at a later time, having seen the drawback of directed thought, I pursued that theme. Having understood the reward of being without directed thought, I familiarized myself with it. My heart leaped up. And then with the stilling of directed thought and evaluations, I entered and remained in the second jhana. And then he gives the sense of the rapture and the composure that's the unification that's present in the second jhana. So as the sutta continues, the third one, you can see the same pattern. What if? But now that rapture is what if I let the rapture dampen down? Now, if I kind of let go of the rapture aspect of it, then could I go into the third jhana? And he goes to the same thing. My heart didn't leap up. What is the cause? Well, I haven't seen the drawbacks, and I haven't pursued that understanding, and I haven't understood the reward, and I haven't familiarized myself. I haven't spent time in that reward. So what if my hypothesis is if I do see the drawbacks of the thing I want to let go of, and I do pursue the letting go, that my heart would leap up and I would see this as peaceful. And again, so at a later time, so time's passed, having seen the drawback, I pursued the theme. Having understood the reward, I familiarized myself with it and my heart leaped up. And then with the fading away of, in this case, rapture, I remained in equanimity, mindful and alert, physically sensitive to pleasure, and entered and remained in the third jhana. I think you got the pattern here, right? So here's the pattern. And I'll scroll this way, and you can see we've got 9 things here in this sutta that he's applying this pattern to, because he's particularly talking about this renunciation that leads to emancipation by going through the jhanas and the process of understanding. So this is the pattern that emerges in the sutta. Question: what if? What if there were renunciation of fill in the blank, and I were to abide in the next state of meditative absorption? And then there's the observation, well, I had that thought, but my heart didn't leap up and say, oh yeah, being without that's going to be so great. I'm confident. So this is a reality. We're in these sensual-based bodies and we have a long history. So just the thought of, oh, I read a sutta that says that's so great, now I want to do it too. That might be so. I want to do it too, but there's this habit energy of so many lifetimes, and the heart isn't necessarily going to go, yeah. It's going to maybe say, yeah, but. And that's where we need to go into further if the heart goes, yeah, and you go, excellent. But if there's that but happening, then you can start to do this exploration. And the question is, what is the cause? What is the reason why my heart doesn't leap up when I consider being without fill in the blank? And then we observe, well, I haven't seen the drawback of this thing, and I haven't pursued that theme of seeing the drawback. I've basically spent my life indulging in fill in the blank, not trying to also see, hey, this is really just a movie playing and those are just particles on the screen, and whatever it is that we're exploring, that we haven't looked at that the totality of experience. It's like, oh, but this meal, as I eat this, it tastes so good, and then when we're not with the tasting so good aspect of it, we don't notice the other sensations that may arise, or we don't notice that it doesn't fulfill us for very long. Now, as soon as try it sometime, notice how far into eating something it's pleasant. It's a very interesting experiment. It's an easy one to do. So that's looking at the drawback and pursuing the theme of looking into the drawback. And then I haven't understood the reward of being without. So we set aside whatever this sense pleasure thing is, or this directed thought or rapture or whatever stage we're at, and we consider, let me spend some time with it. Let me get familiar with it. Let me get intimate with it. These practices of meditation are highly intimate in a way that we'll come to see is very, very nourishing. Now, this is the pleasure that the Buddha said is not to be feared. Okay, so then once having seen the drawback and pursuing the reward of being without it, there's a possibility that my heart would leap up. So kind of planting the seed. This is why I'm doing it. I'm doing this because I have the sense that there's a possibility it will be very beneficial. So we do it. We give it some time. We give it some consideration. And typically, at least in my experience thus far, and the Buddha's telling us it was his experience, and I certainly don't have anywhere near the experience the Buddha did, there is this observation. Having seen that drawback, I pursued and understanding it, pursuing that sense of what is the drawback, and having understood the reward of setting that aside and familiarizing myself with the renunciation of it, my heart did leap up. Okay, so then the practice unfolds, and we'll just kind of go through the things from this sutta, and I'll focus on the highlighting qualities. You'll see In the first one that we did, it was quite withdrawn from sensuality. In the second one, with the stilling of, and that's the directed thought. The third is with the fading of rapture. Fourth would be with the abandoning of pleasure and stress. This is Thanissaro Bhikku's translation here. With the complete transcending of, and that's what appears for the next several there, with the complete transcending of, and that's going through the immaterial jhanic abodes. And then the last one with the complete transcendence of the dimension of neither perception or non-perception. So this is going through the different stages within samadhi practices. But look at the basic qualities of these words. Quite withdrawn from, with the stilling of, with the fading of, with the abandoning of, and with the complete transcending of. So this is all about a renunciation practice. And then the new awareness that results from this is that, oh, I was beset with the perceptions of, that thing before, sensuality, or directed thought, or rapture, or even the dealing with equanimity. I mean, so it's not that these are unwholesome qualities all the time. Even the sense pleasure is not an unwholesome thing. It's just not directing towards the renunciation and emancipation. So we go through the list, and the last one on it, after the complete transcendence of the dimension of neither perception nor non-perception, is, and I saw with discernment the mental fermentations went to their total end. That's the asavas, the suppurations, the oozing, the the wounds and sores of sensuality, and that the mental uck went to its total end. So this is this method of exploration, with its time in meditation, its observation, its inquiry, leads to total liberation. All right, so we've got just a little bit more in the sutta. So the Buddha's gone through this, and he says then to Ananda, and the layperson is there as well. Ananda, as long as I have not attained and emerged from these 9 step-by-step dwelling attainments in forward and backward order in this way, I did not claim to have directly awakened to the right self-awakening, unexcelled in the cosmos with its devas, maras, and brahmas, with its contemplatives and brahmins, its royalty and common people. But as soon as I had attained and emerged from these 9 step-by-step dwelling attainments in forward and backward order in this way, you can see he's really familiarizing himself with it. Then I did claim to have directly awakened to this right self-awakening, unexcelled in the cosmos with its devas, maras, and brahmas, with its contemplatives and brahmins, its royalty and common people. Knowledge and vision arose in me. My release is unshakable. This is the last birth. There is now no further becoming. So this is the sutta, and I did pick a poem from the end of another sutta that kind of accentuates this. This is Anguttara Nikaya 339, the last part of that sutta. While I was dwelling thus, having known the state without attachments, I overcame all intoxications, intoxication with health, with youth, and with life, having seen security in renunciation. Zeal then arose in me as I clearly saw Nibbana. Now I am incapable of indulging in sensual pleasures. relying on the spiritual life, never will I turn back. And I just want to note that this is indulging, and this is not, never again will I experience sensual pleasures. Never again will I not enjoy, a meal or a conversation or a sunset. It's that I'm not going to indulge and get attached and stuck in that. I'm going to rely on the spiritual life, and never will there be a turning back. So that is the sutta for today. Are there any comments specifically on the sutta before I turn off the recording? If you have personal experiences you want to share or talk about, we can do that after the recording. So anything that, raise a hand if there's something to say before the recording stops. Yes, John.
I have said a bunch of things, so maybe I should let Kat go first. No.
I don't have anything.
Go
All
ahead,
right.
John.
Okay. Yeah. Well, in that, sorry. Well, in that case, I'll say one other thing. Is there a Pali term for giving up bad habits or giving up the habit of dwelling on the past? Because this one's talking about kind of like a universal renunciation of our relationship to sensual pleasure.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It is not jumping into my mind right now, but yes, there is. I can definitely look that up and let you know. I'm thinking of the sutta, an excellent night where, not on the past should we look. Oh, here, hold on. We've got. Let me see if I can pull it up quickly. Let's see. A single excellent night. I have my copy of this in my room, so let's see if I can pull it up here. An auspicious day is how it's called here. 144. Okay, so the English of the first stanza is, you shouldn't chase after the past or place expectations on the future. What is past is left behind. The future is as yet unreached. I'll just keep going because it's so wonderful. Whatever phenomena is present, you clearly see right there, right there. Unvanquished, unshaken, that's you. You develop the mind. Doing your duty ardently today, for who knows, tomorrow, death. There is no bargaining with death and his mighty horde. Whoever lives thus ardently, relentlessly, both day and night, has truly had an auspicious day, so says the peaceful sage. This is Thanissaro Bhikku's translation. So let's see, chasing after the past. I think that's going to be Nanvagameya. So I'll send you an email with the link to this particular sutta. All right, well, I'm gonna turn off the recording and we can talk about personal experiences more if people wish. Let's see, stop the live stream. All right, goodbye to YouTube land.